So recently I turned 50 and I'm very aware of changes in my body. In the last 3 years, I've gained about 6 kilos. I was 55 kilograms. I am now 61 kilograms. I'm okay with that because, well, I was small and the extra kilos have spread evenly, I'm pleased to say. So I'm not hating it. I still fit in the majority of my clothes, those that were very tight. Obviously not, but anything else, it's all good. However, I am very conscious of it and I'm absolutely, what's the word? I do not want to gain any more weight. Otherwise, it would mean a whole new wardrobe and I don't like it. I was a dancer. I'm very attuned to the physical aspect of my body and I feel like this is my limit. This is the point where, yes, I'm comfortable and I'm happy, but if it continues, I'll be upset with myself for allowing it. So having a circle of friends and family all the same age and going through the same changes, I wanted to talk to a dietitian to try to understand what could help us women through this period of our lives and what we could have in our cupboards, possibly, that could help with menopausal symptoms. Nina is a registered dietitian. She has been qualified for 26 years and specialises in paediatric intensive care and ketogenic diet therapy for children with drug-resistant epilepsy. She is also a woman of a certain age and has been going through the menopause for the last few years, so has been interested in how, if at all, diet can manage the symptoms of menopause. Hello, Nina.
Hello, Maria.
Did I pronounce that correctly?
It's
Ketogenic.
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 Yeah, yeah. It's a very specific diet for children with epilepsy, although it has been in the press over the last few years to help with weight loss. But I don't deal with that, and there's not enough robust evidence to help with that. But
Right.
certainly with children with epilepsy, it is a medical treatment that we use frequently.
Okay. I was very well. I was like, oh, there's a word I've not come across before. Well, it's lovely to have you on the radio. And
Thank
as
you
I
for
said, I mean,
inviting
I
me.
know that you specialise, I guess, in paediatric care. But again, you're a dietitian and you're a woman of, midlife.
Yes,
Is that what we call it now? I'm not sure anymore. So as
yes.
we're living
Oh,
ever
longer and longer.
longer, yeah.
Yeah, I'm older than I was, and not as old as I want to be.
There you go. So, Nina, I guess the first question would be, can we help ourselves naturally with diet?
Yes, absolutely. Diet can help with a lot of different things, and even in menopause as well. I mean, the whole thing with menopause is obviously it's a shift in hormones. And being a dietitian, we always look at evidence based, so we're sort of scientific based rather than my friend did this and it worked
Yeah,
for her, so
yeah,
therefore I'm going to do that. So essentially, there because 50% of the population are women. Obviously, there have been studies that have been completed. And yes, I'm pediatrics, but I do have an interest. If something interests me, I will go and have a look into it and do the research and do the
yeah.
reading. And actually, this was a really useful exercise because it did highlight that in the last, sort of between 2009 and 2019, there were nearly 4,000 studies published in menopause,
Oh,
looking at
wow.
menopause. However, only 19 of those actually investigated the relationship of food intake, dietary patterns, and the effects of menopausal symptoms.
Right.
And I think most people see menopause symptoms as hot flushes, but actually there's many, many more than that.
Yeah,
For example, we've got hot flushes, the vasomotor. We've got urogenital. There's physical symptoms, increased joint pain,
yeah.
sleep disturbance, weight gain, and how can we help manage those symptoms, if at all, through diet? Um, and we can. I think that the first thing really is if we think about weight gain. Unfortunately, when you've got a reduction in your estrogen levels, it does lead to a reduction in lean body mass and an increase in fat mass. So you're on sort of a road to nowhere, really.
Yeah. Well, that is the thing.
So
I see sort of many women complain of belly fat, and it seems that if you do put on weight, it seems to be in that sort of midriff area that tends to expand, and you feel like, well, I've done nothing. I've not changed my diet. I'm doing sort of the same lifestyle that I've always had.
yeah, and again, that whole belly fat is down to this downward shift of estrogen. It means our body isn't as able to metabolize fat as it did previously.
Right.
So if we're not metabolizing and using that fat, it gets laid down and it is in that belly area. I mean, the other thing as well is just as we get older and we head into our sort of 40s and 50s, although we might not realize it, our lifestyles do tend to change a little bit in that our exercise tends to reduce, maybe not significantly in one go, but if when you're a mum and you're running around after youngsters and children and you're maybe working as well, you're always on the go. As our children get older, which tends to coincide with this sort of middle age time, our energy expenditure may well reduce, but our eating habits don't.
Right.
So therefore, we tend to end up with a positive energy balance. So when we talk about positive energy balance, it's energy going in equals more than energy going out, which equals weight gain.
Yeah.
It's that simple. So yes, unfortunately, downward shift of hormones reduces our reduces our lean body mass.
Yeah, for myself, I have cut out bread and pasta. Not completely. I'll have pasta maybe once a week, but I no longer have sandwiches for lunch. I found that it was making me feel bloated. So a reduction, I'd say, more than a complete sort of ban of these things. But I did find that wheat would make me feel bloated, I guess.
That sounds like you do have some sort of symptom. However, a true wheat gluten intolerance, it's unlike, it may not be that. If it is, you need to look at your family history and you need to look at whether or not there could be a risk of celiac disease, because often celiac disease is undiagnosed. And it's not just gastro that it presents with lots of different types of symptoms, which we don't realise. For example, mouth ulcers or joint pain or something like that. We don't generally, it's quite interesting. Again, I had to learn about this quite rapidly when 3 of my children got diagnosed within a matter of 3 months of each other, and they were all teenagers.
Oh, really?
So one had classical symptoms and the other 2 didn't, but they had symptoms which I later found out were actually associated with celiac. So they're all on gluten-free diets now.
And those symptoms, wow.
No symptoms now. And like I say, the symptoms that they did, the 2 that didn't have the classical malabsorption, presented with constipation, which is the opposite of what you kind of have in your head for celiac disease, and mouth ulcers and joint pain, which we put down to being run down and growing pains. Children of medics.
Yeah. So how did you sort of come across it? I mean, I know we're veering off slightly. Was it just
well, the one with the classical symptoms, I took him to the GP because he'd lost a lot of weight. He was very pale, and he seemed to be going to the toilet a lot. And I noticed it was after certain foods. And then he complained of his foot joint was aching, which is very unusual for a 15-year-old to say, look, my joint is sore. And I just thought, oh gosh, we've got a family history of rheumatoid arthritis. Let's go and get this checked. Took him to the GP and he's like, it looks all right. I said, well, can you just humour me? Could you please do a TTG for celiac? He's like, well, why? I don't think it's that. And I was like, just humour me. These are the reasons why. He knows my job. And he was like, yeah, okay then. So he did a blood test and 7 days later I got a phone call. Mrs. Brierley, are you sitting down? So that led to him having to have a scope. And then we hadn't even sat down, and the surgeon called us to say, he'd gone down to theatre. Surgeon called us within 10 minutes and said, got it. Yeah, grade 3, gluten-free, and get your other kids tested. So, and they had the same. So, they've dealt with it very well, given that they were mid-teens and they had to change the whole way that they ate.
And was there any family history, or was that just as...
No. Joe and I got tested. Yeah, no, we're fine. But we have got a family history of autoimmune disease, and and celiac disease is an autoimmune disease. It's not you can't catch it. It's within your body. So so unfortunately that's the way that it is. But it's so common. It's like 1 in 125 people have got celiac disease.
So it's
and not everybody knows,
isn't it? And not they're not fully aware. Absolutely.
We don't as a whole recommend cutting out full full food groups, or
Yeah.
food groups as a
Yeah.
whole.
Yeah.
So bread and pasta is obviously a carbohydrate, and carbohydrate is absolutely essential for maintaining stable blood sugars to keep our energy levels nice and stable, so we don't have dips and highs. Carbohydrate is stored in our muscles. So, for example, if you go to the gym, and if you want to go for a run, then we draw on that muscle glycogen, which is stored the way that carbohydrate is stored, so we can continue. So if we go for a run and we want to do, say, 5k, if we haven't eaten enough carbohydrate, maybe after 2k we get fatigued. Bless you.
Thank you.
So, on the whole, we recommend that for a healthy eating plate is what we kind of look at is 50 to 55% of our total energy should come from carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, not the refined. So when I say complex, whole grains, such as whole grain rice, whole grain bread, whole grain pasta, unless of course you can't eat those products.
Yeah.
Potatoes, the starchy foods.
Yeah.
So 50% of our food each day, spread throughout the day, should come from starchy foods. We need about 15% of our energy to come from protein. We as a whole in the West, our diet we do have a high protein intake, probably more than we actually need.
Right. Yeah.
But again, protein is essential as we get older to maintain our muscle mass, which in turn then helps maintain our fat-free mass. So it all kind of joins together.
Yeah.
And we need to have about 30% of our energy from fat. So that sounds like a lot, but actually when we look at it gram for gram, fat has got about 9 calories per 1 gram, and carbohydrate and protein have got 4 calories per 1 gram. So although it's 30% to come from fat, the actual amounts, the volumes that we eat needs to be very little because it's very energy dense. So the polyunsaturated fats, the olive oils, the sunflower oils, these sorts of fats are the healthy fats.
Yeah.
But not to exceed 30%, and really shouldn't be less than about 15% of our energy, because if we have less than 15%, then we're at risk of becoming deficient in essential fatty acids.
Yeah.
And these are the omega-3s and the omega-6s.
Is that something that could help with the wonderful symptom that is brain fog?
Again, the brain fog is the whole hormone thing. But diet can help with concentration. It's, for example, if we don't have enough fluid, then our concentration levels drop significantly. Just with a slight bit of dehydration, our concentration levels can really drop. Thinking about sports people who are outside events, for example, cricket, or if you become slightly dehydrated, your concentration is impacted hugely. Which, if you've got to hit a cricket ball that's coming at you at 75 miles an hour, you don't want to lose your concentration.
Yeah.
And the same if you're driving. If you're a middle-aged lady driving and you're completely dehydrated, you need to be able to concentrate and see where you're going and make sure that you're as safe as you can be.
Yeah. And hydration is something that you can definitely feel. Just the other day, I went around 4 hours with no drinking, no eating, and I wasn't in a position to just leave what I was doing and go and get something. And then I could feel it coming on. That was the annoying thing. I suddenly got, a terrible headache. And I could feel my energy levels dropping. You need to drink and have a snack.
Snacks are essential again. So what feeds the brain? Glucose feeds the brain. Glucose is the broken down products of carbohydrates. So to optimize your brain function, you need to eat regular meals that do contain carbohydrates, and maintain an adequate hydration. And that should help. It's not going to cure the brain fog. The only thing really that helps with that would be some sort of hormone replacement if possible.
Right.
If you can't take hormone replacement therapy, then there are naturally occurring foods which have got estrogen in them. They're called phytoestrogen foods, such as soya or linseeds, these sorts of things.
Right.
So you can increase your dietary intake of these foods, and they have been found to have some effect in menopausal ladies.
Yeah.
It can take a couple of months for there to be a benefit, so it's not going to be a quick fix.
Yeah.
So just be mindful about, if it's not worked after 2 weeks, don't think it's not going to work. Just sit tight and keep going and persevere, and hopefully you will feel some benefits from that.
Yeah. And what about the role of turmeric? I have half a teaspoon every morning in my porridge, and I find it just wonderful. I'm a fit, healthy gym goer. However, when I used to crouch down, my knees did not like it. Within 2 weeks of adding turmeric to my diet, that completely went away. I can crouch down and get up quite comfortably.
So I've had conversations with family members about the role of turmeric in arthritis and inflammatory disease states, and there is emerging evidence, but at the moment it's not strong enough, I don't think, for me to sort of say,
Yeah.
right, yes, crack on and take that amount. It, like I say, that it's a relatively new thing that's been investigated,
Yeah.
but I'm aware of some papers that are coming through saying, actually, yes, this might be of benefit, but we just need to back that data up.
Yeah, of course.
What I would say is, if you're feeling a benefit from it,
Yeah.
depending on what you're taking and how much you're taking, if it's making you feel all right, then great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not going to do you any harm, is it? I mean, like I said, I literally put half a teaspoon in my porridge with quite a bit of honey, and it's fine for me. A load of seeds and raisins, but I like I said, I could tell the difference pretty soon after. You know, like I said, within 2 weeks, kept testing it out, kept crouching down. So I did. I was like, I'm adamant to find out this actually, and I was like amazed. I thought, this is, a good thing.
So just did you add anything else at the same time as the turmeric, or were you already adding the seeds to your porridge?
Already adding the seeds. I've always had my seeds with my porridge.
Right,
sunflower and pumpkin.
Yeah. Okay. Because they have got the omega-6 in, which is slightly anti-inflammatory. Well, omega-3 is the anti-inflammatory fatty acid, and that's what's found in fish oils. Yeah. You just need to be mindful, because the omega-6s can be inflammatory. So because they both compete for the same pathway, omega-3 and omega-6. And if you've got too much of one and not enough of the other, the one that you've got more of is going to get down that pathway.
Right.
Yeah, it's. I did my dissertation 37 years ago.
Well done, you. Oh my Lord. So are there any hacks then that we should know, right, do if you're going to take that? Because actually that was the one thing somebody told me, if you're going to take the turmeric, you have to take it with something fatty for it to absorb it.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so hence why I have it in my porridge, because I have full fat milk. It's not a lot of milk that you have I use these porridge sachets, so that's why I mix it with porridge, purely for that reason.
Yeah, well, I mean, I did my dissertation in rheumatoid arthritis and diet, and again, I mean, like I say, 27 years ago, at that point, it was emerging evidence that there may be some benefit, and there's been a lot of research in the role of omega-3 and essential fatty acids over the last 20 odd years, and it is found to be an anti-inflammatory food. But it's how you take it. It's best to be taken in its natural form, and that would be in things like oily fish, just because then you get the benefits of the whole food, rather than taking a supplement.
Yeah.
If you don't like fish, then an omega-3 supplement is better than nothing. Just don't take more than is recommended on the packet, because more doesn't necessarily mean better. It can, in fact, lead to toxicity. So just be mindful, more isn't always better.
And vitamin D, which is essential. Do we have enough sunlight in this country to maintain a good vitamin D level?
Absolutely not. Absolutely. There was, I think it was 2016, that the Scientific Advisory Committee on Nutrition have recommended that 10 micrograms per day for everybody. Younger children, smaller amounts of vitamin D should be taken, particularly in the winter months, because our weather is shocking. And we don't necessarily absorb enough during the summer months to see us through. Even if the sun's shining in the winter, it doesn't provide enough vitamin D for us to store. So it's through the summer months. And that, again, with menopause, you're at increased risk of osteoporosis, because our calcium stores start to deplete from the age of 35. So we need to ensure that we have enough calcium in our diet, and that can be dairy or dairy free, make sure that if you're dairy free and getting plant-based milks, that they are fortified with calcium and or vitamin D, ideally.
Yeah.
Make sure that if you're not, then take a vitamin D supplement. What you don't want to do is you can take too much vitamin D. So the recommendations are 10 micrograms a day. So just check with a pharmacist, and let them know if you're on any medications as well. Be mindful if you're taking a multivitamin and sort of standalone vitamins, because again, more is not better always. So just be mindful of that. But certainly, aim for it as a menopausal lady. Aim for 3 portions of calcium portions a day, and that can be, like I say, it can be from dairy or it can be from non-dairy. Simple ways are have a milky coffee,
and that's protein as well, isn't it? There's protein in dairy, cheeses,
and cheese, custards. You can get dairy in.
Think of custards, Nina.
Custard, rice pudding. Oh yeah.
And what about some night sweats? There's something that for a lot of people.
Night sweats. Oh God, aren't they awful? Aren't they just? I was going to say a word then, but aren't they just terrible? Hate it. I thought I was dying when I started getting those.
Really? Do you know what?
Being in the medical profession, I was just like, oh, night sweats, this is really bad. This is not a good thing. Age.
Do you know what? Touch wood. I get them, but it's not. They're quite mild. They just come up quite mild.
I would say that that's my worst symptom.
Really?
Absolutely. I can cope with. I get the brain fog. I lose my words sometimes. But it's the night sweats. It's just. Anyway, and for somebody who's always cold to then go to bed and wake up like this sort of dripping horrible mess, just terrible. So the way the things that can help that is to avoid caffeinated drinks and alcohol.
Okay.
So I'm lucky in that I don't drink alcohol just because I don't like the taste.
Yeah.
But I do love a cup of tea. Which is my kind of I've when I think about I've had a really bad night's sleep. Why did I have such a bad night's sleep last night? And I just think back to what I've had to eat and drink throughout the day. And I may well have had a couple of more cups of tea, and I may well have had a cup of tea too soon to bedtime. I think if it's got caffeine in it, avoid it. Or get the decaffeinated version. So you can still have your tea and your coffee, but just choose the decaffeinated. And the same for if you like a fizzy drink, which we don't tend to recommend because that can affect calcium absorption as well. Go for the decaffeinated drinks if you can't live without them. And if you do need a caffeinated cup of tea or coffee, then maybe reduce the amount that you're having. If you're having 6 cups a day, drop it down to 4 initially and see how that goes.
Right.
Try and not to have it a couple of hours before you go to bed. Obviously, if you're cutting down your food where you've been drinking tea, increase it with non-sugary drinks, water or sugar-free squash or that kind of thing.
Okay, I guess finally it would be a blood test question, because I know some people would say, go and get your bloods done. But I haven't had that done, or I don't know where I am, because I've basically got a Mirena coil, so I don't have periods. I haven't had them for about 12 years, so I've got no idea, to be honest, and I just have to gauge by the fact, yes, I've put on a bit of weight, yes, I do get a bit of brain fog, and I'll have those mild hot flushes. So I'm like, okay, I think it's happening.
No, I'm the same. I had an endometrial ablation because I was having very irregular but frequent, really heavy periods, and it was the bane of my life. So I went and saw a lovely gynecologist, and she said, "Well, we can do this." I said, "Yes, please." And I had that done in my late 40s. So 4 years now. So again, I didn't have that marker. So when I was speaking to my GP, we couldn't use that as a marker. When was your last period? 3 years ago, because this is what I had done. So, right, okay. So it is looking at symptoms. Look at your symptoms and write them down. It's essential that you write them down if you notice there's a change in anything. So blood tests, that as far as I understand, they're not recommended, because you could go on a Tuesday and your hormones are fine. You can
Right.
go on the next day and your hormones are all, are
All
dropped.
over the place.
So
Right.
yeah, so it really is keep a sort of a symptom diary. Make a note of things. There are some really good apps available. I mean, Dr. Louise Newson she's quite she's in the media a lot, and she's
I'm
got an
going to
app
write that
which
down. Hang on, Nina. What's her name?
Dr. Louise Newson.
Right.
In fact, I think she's a GP by trade, doctor, but she specialises in menopause, and she has got an app. I think it's called the Balance app.
Check
But
that out.
it's really useful. It's got lots of really helpful resources in easy to understand format. So it's not blinding you with science.
Yeah.
It's this is what happens, and this is why, and this is what can be done. There's also the Menopause Society, which is a really useful resource where you can go and look up symptoms and
Menopause Society.
look for help.
Yeah.
If you're experiencing difficulties, I think it's really important that you get a GP on board. Don't be fobbed off.
Right.
Every female generally will go through the menopause at some point in their life.
Absolutely.
Whether it's earlier or later, or sort of within the average. And mood as well. It's difficult to go and talk about mood and low mood. Personally, if I was going to go and see the GP and say, "Look, I'm really down. I don't know why I'm down. What reason have I got to be down?" Well, you might be depressed. Well, I might be. I might not be.
Yeah.
Let's not just put a label on it straight away. Let's look at the bigger picture.
Okay, so to wrap it up, is there a sort of, I don't know, top tip?
I would say, from a dietetic perspective, yes, there are. It's making sure that you have a healthy, well-balanced diet. You maintain your weight as much as possible. You exercise as is safely possible for you. We optimize bone health, and we reduce our caffeine and alcohol intake wherever possible. And if necessary, see your GP, and if it's applicable to you and if it's appropriate for you, then have discussions around hormone replacement therapy, because that will help alongside the diet. Diet can help manage the symptoms.
Oh, that's been amazing.
Right. And I think as well, if you're not having much success with your GP, there are, if you're going to look for a doctor to help, you need a women's health specialist doctor.
Yeah.
If you've got the funds to go privately, then a lot of the insurance companies hold lists of doctors, and if you phone up, you say, "I need to see a women's health specialist," they will say, "Where are you?" And they'll say, "I'm here." So therefore, there's these people in that area.
Oh, brilliant.
So
that's it. I think a lot of us don't even know, the resources that we've got, to be honest.
Just make sure that you do your research on your doctor, read up on them, and make sure that they do what you want them to do.
Yeah. You can even ask your GP to refer you to an NHS hospital gynaecologist team if you're experiencing problems.
It's been lovely to speak to you.
Oh, thank you so much.
All righty, you take care. See you soon. Bye.
Bye. That was Nina Brierley there talking to me here on Radio Way.
Radio Way.